Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the ninth episode of Psych Talks with Psychologists, and I'm your host, Ms. Bashaw, director at ICHAS. Today we have with us Gauri Kavi, and she'll be talking about RE CBT. Before I start, a brief introduction about the organization. We are an organization that helps psychologists, coaches, trainers develop advanced coaching and therapeutic skills. And before I move ahead, whosoever is watching, they can feel free to ask any kind of questions they have in the comment section, and we'll surely answer them. And you can also start a watch party on Facebook so that your friends and family can benefit out of this session. A brief introduction about Gauri. She is a psychotherapist, a hypnotherapist, a life coach, and she's also associated as a fellow and a training faculty level 2 with Albert Ellis Institute. And she's a founder of Self Align, an affiliated training center with Albert Ellis. She takes individual therapy sessions and conducts workshops. So welcome, Gauri, at Psych Talks with Psychologists.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ba. Thank you so much for having me here.
Gauri, you can give your brief introduction before we go ahead with our question and answers.
Okay. So, like you've already mentioned, I am a psychologist, I'm a psychotherapist, I'm a life coach, I'm a hypnotherapist, I'm a yoga teacher, and I practice an eclectic, approach to therapy to suit my clients. I do individual sessions as well as workshops. And I'm also an NLP practitioner, I'm a Gestalt practitioner. So, but REBT is my passion.
Lovely. So that's going to be a topic also today.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming, being present on this session. So can you tell us about RECBT? What is it about?
Okay. So basically, it began as RT in 1955, and it was propounded by Dr. Albert Ellis. He called it rational therapy. Then in 1961, he called it rational emotive therapy. And it was only in the early 19s, that is 1993, if I'm not mistaken, that he called it REBT, that is rational emotive behavior therapy. So he's actually the grandfather of cognitive behavior therapy. Aaron Beck came up with CBT 10 years after. REBT to me, Misbah, is a philosophy of life. I look upon it as more than a therapy. It's a philosophy of life. It is something, it's your attitude, your outlook on how you perceive life. So as far as the therapy part is concerned, it's an active directive psychotherapy developed by Dr. Albert Ellis, which basically equips individuals with certain skills to challenge and rationalize their illogical or absolutely baseless beliefs or their own internal negative self-talk, which actually creates their emotional disorder. So Ellis explained how people are more emotionally affected by their own internal thought processes rather than anything that is happening in the external environment.
Lovely. I think there's a nice brief introduction about the modality that we are going to talk about. Going further, Gauri, let's say a quick hi to whoever is watching us online.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. And in particular, looking forward to all your questions. I'm going to go ahead with my set of questions. So, Gauri, can you tell us the difference between RECBT, REBT, CBT, and BT?
Okay. So, see, like I said, Ellis is the grandfather of cognitive behavior therapy. He came up with rational emotive therapy, as he called it at that time. And Aaron Beck, who was his contemporary, came up with CBT sometime in the 1960s, mid-1960s. The difference between these two, actually the similarity is that they're both cognitive therapies. They're both behavioral therapies. They both work on changing behaviors and they both work on changing emotions. The difference is that in REBT, although now it is called RE and CBT, so rational, emotive, and cognitive behavior therapy. But the modality is the same. It is not the Beckian CBT. It is still the Ellis model, the ABC model of REBT. It's just called differently now. The terminology is different. So in RECBT, rational emotive behavior therapy stresses the cognitive factor in the acquisition and change of emotional reactions, while in cognitive behavior therapy, that is CBT, it stresses more on environmental and mediational processes. So ideally, REBT goes beyond symptom removal methods to obtain a much more deep-rooted philosophical change.
Lovely. And BT?
BT is behavior therapy. REBT includes a lot of behavioral therapy concepts. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Really, it's left a lot clear right now to me. So
ideally to me, Misbah, I would term CBT and REBT under the umbrella of cognitive therapies. So if you take cognitive therapy, you have CBT and you have REBT. Basically, both deal with cognition, emotions, but the approach is different.
Okay, perfect. I think it makes very clear to understand the difference between these modalities and how similar also, or maybe how they're connected also. If you could just let us know what are the key principles of RECBT while one wants to practice it.
Okay, so the REBT has given RECBT has given us some really unique concepts, but one of the most important concept, the fundamental thing is that it strives for a pervasive and a very long lasting rather than a symptomatic change, and it tries to eliminate your self ratings. So, you know, we as humans, we have a tendency of rating ourselves as unworthy.
True.
Or not being good enough, okay?
Right.
Or I'm a failure, I'm a loser, okay? So we rate ourselves rather than our behaviors or rather than our actions and our tasks. So Ellis had a huge problem with this, and he just did away with this entire concept of self-worth, and he replaced it with what he called unconditional self-acceptance. So unconditional self-acceptance, unconditional others' acceptance, and unconditional life acceptance. So instead of rating your entire self, rate your behaviors and not your personality, or not your being as a human. That was the most important premise of REBT. There are a few more. The other one is that it does not encourage problem solving, which is not accompanied by a change in behavior. A change in the basic belief system. So REBT works on your irrational beliefs, which are at the root of all your emotions and behaviors. And as we say in REBT, we make the BC connection. That is, we help the client to realize the connection between his emotional or behavioral distress and his irrational way of thinking. So it connects these two things. The training is also done with within a philosophic framework, where we try to help clients make basic changes in their irrational beliefs. And for doing that, we dispute the client's irrational beliefs. And this was something that was not done earlier till REBT came about. So we actually challenge or dispute the client's irrational beliefs in REBT. And also, it emphasizes methods of working directly with and on emotions, and it stresses a discrimination between appropriate and inappropriate emotions. So REBT, I think, was the first therapy to actually give a distinction between negative, within the negative emotions, give a distinction between healthy negative emotions and unhealthy negative emotions. So in REBT, we are not looking at turning negative emotions into positive emotions, because that's not always possible. So instead, we turn the unhealthy negative into a slightly healthier version.
Okay.
So these are the key principles really of REBT.
Lovely. I'll just check if we have any kind of questions online.
Sure.
Gauri, just give me a moment. I think
sure.
On the Facebook Live, we're having some glitch. I'll just
sure.
It. Gauri, it's just that there is some technical issues because we are not getting streamed on Facebook. So
Okay.
that's why I'm just checking it, and
Sure.
we should
Sure.
be able to do it in a moment. Gauri, I'm very much here. And just give me a moment.
Yeah. Sure. Take your time.
Some it's taking time. I think there's some issue from the Zoom side of not streaming us on Facebook Live.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I'm just waiting for it to start for a minute or two, and otherwise let's see how we can.
Sure.
You want me to continue from where it was? Gauri, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. I think we can continue now. I'm real.
You can continue from the beginning.
I'm going to do a quick recap because we have again started with another live session. So yes, hello everybody. Really sorry for the technical glitch. We shifted from the other software to Zoom, and Zoom has also had some issue. So once again, welcome everyone. Welcome Gauri. And Gauri is going to talk about one of the most interesting topic, that is RECBT. Gauri, quickly, a brief introduction about yourself and RECBT. What
Okay.
RECBT would be.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gauri Rao Kavi. I'm a psychologist, psychotherapist, hypnotherapist, a life coach, a yoga teacher, and I practice an eclectic approach to therapy as whatever is convenient and suits my client. I do individual sessions. I also do workshops. I've been training for the last 20 years, a little over 20 years, in fact. And although I'm also an NLP practitioner, Gestalt practitioner, etc. But my passion, as I mentioned earlier, is RECBT. And I'm here to give you a brief introduction about this particular therapy, which I think is absolutely wonderful. To me, it is a philosophy of life, and I say this with great conviction. It is an active directive psychotherapy which is developed by Dr. Albert Ellis, which began as rational therapy in 1955. He then termed it RET, that is rational emotive therapy, in 1961. And in 1993, he termed it as REBT, that is rational emotive behavior therapy. Today, the institute, the Albert Ellis Institute in New York, calls it RE and CBT, that is rational emotive and cognitive behavior therapy. It is an active directive therapy. It equips individuals with certain skills, certain tools to challenge and rationalize their illogical, irrational beliefs or their negative self-talk, which an active directive therapy, I'm getting my own echo. Skills or tools to challenge and I'm getting my own echo, Misbah.
Okay.
Self-talk, which an active directive therapy, I'm getting my own echo.
You're getting your own echo.
Yeah, I'm getting an echo.
Okay. Hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so basically Ellis Ellis believed that people's emotional people are more emotionally affected by their own internal thought processes and their internal attitudes rather than what is happening in their external environment. So it is not what is happening in the world, it is not the situation, it's not the circumstance that we are in, but how we view it, how we look at it, how we perceive it, what we believe about it. That actually causes our emotional and behavioral disturbance. So yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Gauri. Thank you. You had a little bit of trouble because of just going after it all over again.
No problem.
Again, if you could just let us know the difference between RECBT, REBT, and CBT.
Yeah. So REBT, as it used to be called, RECBT, as it is now called, okay, is the same thing.
Okay.
And so it is the Ellis model, the Albert Ellis model, the ABC model. And then Aaron Beck, so Ellis is actually the grandfather of REBT, and he came up with it in 1955, as I mentioned before. Aaron Beck came up with his model of CBT, that is cognitive behavior therapy, in 1965, so a good 10 years later. They're both cognitive therapies. They both work with emotions. They both work with behaviors. The only difference is that in REBT, we work more on the irrational beliefs, whereas in CBT, we stress more on the environmental and the mediational processes. So REBT goes beyond all the symptom removal, and basically the focus is on to obtain deep-rooted philosophical changes. If you ask me, ideally they should come under the umbrella of cognitive therapy, because they're both cognitive therapies, just slightly different in approach. And behavioral therapy, BT, behavioral therapy, is also REBT and CBT both borrow from this. So there are a lot of exercises and interventions from behavior therapy which are incorporated both in CBT as well as in REBT.
Excellent. What would be the key principles for RE CBT? Sorry.
The key principle for RE and CBT, well, there are a few unique features which were never given before in any other therapy. But the most important, I think, gift that this therapy gives us, or what Ellis gives us, is the complete abolition of this entire concept of self-worth. So we as human beings tend to rate ourselves rather than rate our behavior or rate our actions. And then, we kind of down ourselves and go into this whole self-depreciating spiral where because we could not pass a particular exam, because we couldn't get a particular job, because we didn't do something the way we wanted to, we then term ourselves as losers and failures and not good enough, and sort of start feeling start thinking that we are not worthy. So Ellis completely got rid of this entire concept of self-worth and replaced it with what he called unconditional self-acceptance. Unconditional self-acceptance, unconditional others acceptance, unconditional life acceptance. And he said that, we are all fallible human beings. We are prone to making mistakes. We are not perfect. We have negative as well as positive and neutral traits in us. So let's just accept ourselves for what we are, instead of, going into this whole worthiness concept, and learn to rate our behaviors or our actions and separate that from our being. Right. Our personalities. So that was one of the main key principles of REBT. The other is that REBT discourages any kind of problem solving which does not change the client's belief system. Mm-hmm. So in REBT, we work on the irrational beliefs, and we help the client we help the client understand the relationship between how he's feeling or how he's behaving and his internal negative thought process, his irrational thought process. So we make that connection for him. And while doing so, we also actually challenge that irrational thought process, which is creating his negative emotions. REBT also, I think, was the first therapy that actually worked directly on emotions, discriminating between two types of negative emotions: unhealthy negative emotions, which make us dysfunctional, and healthy negative emotions, which keep us functional. So there was no other therapy till REBT came into being, wherein this clear-cut distinction between these two emotions, negative emotions, not positive, negative emotions, was given. So unhealthy negative and healthy negative, which it's a big part of REBT.
Okay. Can you put some light on that? Like, what would be healthy negative?
So for instance, let's say that, I really studied very hard for my 10th standard exam or my 12th standard exam, and I was expecting to get 95, 90%. And for some reason, I did not get the kind of percentage that I wanted. Now, if I have that kind of a demand on myself that if I don't get 95%, either I get 95 and I'm good, I'm successful, or if I don't get that, if I don't make that grade, then I'm a failure. So which means I'm not good enough, I'm not capable, I'm not competent, I don't have it in me. So now, if I haven't done well in an exam, I'm not likely to be dancing in the air and jumping about, right? I'm not likely to be very happy about that. I will feel sad, and it is absolutely justified in feeling sad. But to down myself and say that I'm a failure in totality because of that, and then go into a spiral of depression, is not really appropriate. So this is what REBT discriminates between the appropriateness of emotions to a particular situation.
Very well. Any other, principles that you want to put forward?
Well, there are quite a few, but I think I've given you the crux of it.
Sure.
So,
Sure. So we'll just quickly check what others have to say.
sure.
So I think Kalyani, she's already explained the concept of RECBT. When and how do we use, and with whom can we use RECBT?
Okay. So RECBT has clinical applications as well as non-clinical applications. In clinical applications, depression and anxiety disorders are, in fact, it is the first line of treatment along with CBT for depression and anxiety disorders, including you can also use it for obsessive compulsive disorders. You can use it for specific phobias, generalized anxiety, PTSD, eating disorders, addictions, impulse control disorders, and anger management, antisocial behavior, personality disorders, sexual abuse recovery, pain management, general stress management. It works very well with child and adolescent behavior disorders, extremely well with relationship and family problems as well. So the clinical applications, like I said, are, almost every clinical application. In non-clinical application, I would say it is one of the best self-help tools I have come across. And I truly believe in that. So even if you're not using it to counsel others, you can just use it on yourself and be a lot more at peace than you otherwise are.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask you to share personal experience of
Sure.
how REBTs have helped you. I'll take up another question. Kalyani is asked that how can we use REBT for clients with suicidal thoughts due to chronic illness?
Okay. So, like I said, we work on the irrational beliefs, right? So when you're having suicidal thoughts, you could have depression. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you are depressed, but you could have depression. And so basically you are working on the core belief, which usually people have, of hopelessness. The emotion is hopelessness, and the core belief is that perhaps I'm no good or life is no good. So that is what we really work on.
Okay. That's quite deep and intense to understand, and it calls for a lot of work.
Yes, it is. It is a lot of work. With suicidal ideation, there is a lot of work, for sure.
Okay. Gauri, the next question is that can it be used with bipolar disorder?
Yes, you can use it for mood disorders, personality disorders. The only limitations of REBT, I might as well tell you right now, is, for instance, if you have a client who's experiencing a psychotic episode or a manic episode at that point in time.
Okay.
Obviously, reason is not going to work, right? But when he's not experiencing such episodes, you can very well work with RECBT. The other thing is I spoke about PTSD. So again, over here, if it is fresh trauma, you would rather do, maybe EMDR or other palliative therapies. Once that particular trauma has been addressed, you still have remnants. Like, for instance, if it's a rape, if it's a client who's a victim of rape or domestic abuse, there are still remnants which make the emotions that he would feel probably are shame, guilt, etc. And you work on the irrational belief which is creating those emotions. Right. So once we don't work on fresh trauma, but once that trauma per se has been addressed, then definitely you do REBT for quick recovery.
Okay. And Somebody's asked that marital discord arising due to gender discrimination, as in showing the women down, does it work here? If yes, then how?
Beautifully. Beautifully. Like I said, relationship and family problems, REBT is fantastic. I've had some great results with that. See, the reason is you're working on irrational beliefs. Okay? When you're working with irrational beliefs, all of us are walking around with all the irrational beliefs in us at any given point in time. What REBT does is, it helps you to identify that irrational belief, which is causing your emotional disturbance. And once you see the logic behind that, once you see the rationality, and you realize how unreasonable your way of thinking is, there is no reason for any conflict. It's as simple as that.
Lovely. Okay. Beck has divided, says the Mayur is asking, Beck has divided 3 core beliefs in 3 categories. Does Alice also have the same?
Alice has 4 irrational beliefs.
Okay. Which would be?
Which would be demandingness, awfulizing, which Beck calls catastrophizing perhaps, and frustration intolerance, and people rating.
Lovely. I think it's going so smooth that there are a lot of questions which has come up.
That's good. That's good. I'm happy to
Yes.
answer them.
Though, so yeah, Rashmi is asking, when there is a thought of hopelessness and a feel of don't want to live, will REBT help, and how?
Yes, I do have a lot of clients with depression, a lot of them with suicidal ideation as well. And like I said, the state of helplessness and a feeling of hopelessness, okay, both these together is a lethal combination. Now, when you work on their irrational belief system, when you work on their belief and help them to realize that no matter what they do or what they don't do in life, no matter whether they're successful or they are not in any particular field, the fact is that they are good as human beings. Because you cannot put a label to a human being that this human being is valuable and this human being is not. And the same goes for life, right? So if we can help them realize that, then definitely we are able to address their depressive and suicidal ideation and depressive way of thinking as well, and emotions.
Sure. Archana has asked if you could share a successful case study for this.
Okay, do you want me to do that now, or would you like me to do that towards the end of
I think we can take it up a little later, and let's see if there is something else that we have. How would one use RECVT with other modalities? So say, for example, there are other mental health care practitioners and they're practicing other modalities. How would they integrate RECVT with their work?
Yeah. So the good thing about RECVT is that it is very inclusive, and because it has a pronounced philosophic emphasis, it includes humanistic and existentialist outlook also. It also includes desensitization procedures. We use operant conditioning in homework assignments. So, you can really mix a lot of other therapies in it. So there's behavior therapy, there's existentialist therapy, there's humanistic. It's open. It's open. It's not a very rigid therapy at all. It's very inclusive.
Absolutely. Okay. Is there a possibility, or maybe can we say that is REBT confrontational and aggressive?
Confrontational, yes. Aggressive, no.
Okay.
I'm glad you asked me that question, Ms. Ba, because unfortunately REBT has been perceived to be this very aggressive kind of a therapy, only because we actually challenge the client's irrational beliefs and his thinking process, right? But we dispute, we don't argue. And you don't have to do it aggressively. You can do it very gently, and you can do it with a smile. So it's not aggressive at all. Confrontational, I would say yes, because we do confront his illogical way of thinking. We do confront discrepancies that he has. But of course, there's a way of doing it. So it's not done in a way where he becomes defensive.
Okay, excellent. Which would be the different types of client issues where you would recommend RECBT?
I just mentioned all the applications, clinical applications. So
Yes,
all
yes.
of those. Yes.
Okay. Let me see if we can check. How does one speak to a depressed person? And well, so I think that's a general question being asked. So how would, say, for example, if you are already working as a professional of RECBT, how would you interact with a depressed person?
Okay. So now the thing is that depression is a mental health disorder, right?
Right.
It's a state. But
Yes.
in REBT, we take depression as an emotion. So the hopelessness that a depressed person feels is taken to be depressed as an emotion in REBT. I just wanted to make that clear.
Mm-hmm.
To answer your question, like I said, we work with the irrational belief that is behind that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So in REBT, we believe that it is not your circumstance, it is not the state of life that you are in, it is not your situation, it is not your environment, but how you perceive it. So a depressed person will be looking at life in a different way. His attitude, his outlook is very different. His thought process is very different. Okay, it's all very negative. There is no hope. He feels extremely helpless. He's not able to. He doesn't have the confidence in his own ability to come out of it, etc., etc. And most importantly, um, he doesn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. Right. So we work with the thinking process. We work with the way he thinks, the core belief behind that. And once we work on that and we change that to a more rational and a more logical and a more realistic way of thinking, the emotion changes from depression to maybe sadness, which is the healthier alternative to depression. So if, for instance, there is a loss of a relationship, loss of a loved one, any kind of a loss, because of which you are experiencing depression, you allow the person some time to come out of that. But if that carries on, then that is not healthy, right? So what we do is we work on the irrational belief and help him to think more rationally. And then maybe for some time he would continue to be sad, but not hopeless, not depressed.
Right. So one more question on the way. It's how emotions can be disciplined with RECBT, whether it's a positive emotion or a negative emotion.
Okay. So let me give you a spectrum. Supposing if you take a spectrum of emotions, so you have one end which is positive and the other end is negative, right? Like I said earlier, if you're going through a divorce and you're not happy about it, as in you don't want the divorce, you're not going to be happy about it, right? So definitely you're not going to be at the positive end of the spectrum. You will be at the negative end. Now, at the negative end of the spectrum, you have a choice to be depressed or you have a choice to be sad. If you're depressed, then it's dysfunctional, it is unhealthy. If you're sad, you're still functional and you're justified in feeling sad because it is the end of a marriage or end of a relationship which you invested a lot of time and energy in. So you are justified in feeling sad about it. But when you are feeling sad about it, you're still functioning and you still believe in your capability to come out of it. Right? So this is what we do. We work to bring you from unhealthy negative to a healthy negative. And then, of course, with time, slowly, you would go to a positive. But overnight, it's not possible to go from a negative to a positive.
Lovely.
So it's very realistic in its approach in changing your emotions and through your thought process.
Right. Somebody's also asked, Gauri, that can RECBT be used in improving public speaking?
Yes, of course. Of course. See, a person who is shy or shies from public speaking, you know that obviously there is no confidence, right? He doesn't have the confidence. He has certain irrational beliefs because of which he doesn't have that confidence.
Right.
So again, we are working on that irrational belief. The moment we work on that, his self-esteem, his confidence goes up. He looks better in his own image, so to speak. He starts feeling good about himself. He's not downing himself all the time. And if he's feeling confident about himself, then there is nothing stopping him from going and speaking to an audience of 3,000 people.
True. Nice. There is one more question. Is there any emphasis on a world and future view in REBT like it is there in the CBT?
Of course, definitely.
Could you elaborate?
Definitely. So we are when we talk about the world view or the future view, it is always looking at hope. It is always looking at a better tomorrow. It is always looking at being functional, enjoying life, breathing, being alive. Right? So if you are able to identify your core beliefs and if you're able to change your thought process, you are obviously going to lead a more productive life. And if you are going to lead a more productive life, you are going to look to a future that is good and productive as well.
Lovely. So let me see if we have a few more questions. Jyoti is asked, how does REBT specifically work with phobias? Because there might not be any associated apparent thought involved. It's more like an automatic, intense emotional response.
Yes, so, but we do work with phobias. No matter how automatic, intense emotional response there is always an irrational belief behind it.
Okay. And again, if you're saying that, then the process would remain the same of identifying...
Process remains the same. Process remains the same.
Okay.
We work on the beliefs.
Right. So I'm sure, Jyoti, your question is being answered. Right. Okay. Marital discord I've already talked about. We did talk about marital discord, right?
We spoke about relationship issues, yes.
Yes.
So any kind of relationship issues, any kind.
Any kind of, Gauri, challenges one would face while practicing RECBT, or whether you have faced, if you could shed some light on that?
I wouldn't really say challenges, but yes, there are certain errors that therapists who are new to REBT, just learn. Whole list of errors that therapists are likely to make, and which is very normal. So just to address a few of them, a lot of people who have been used to your regular Rogerian therapy or your person-centric therapy, which talks about building this therapeutic alliance, etc. They think that the focus should be first on building that alliance, building that rapport, gaining the trust of the client, and then doing the REBT therapy, which is an error, because the therapeutic alliance is a part and parcel of the entire process. So it's not something that happens separately, but it happens parallelly during the process, during the session. A lot of therapists forget to do any kind of a goal setting. They get overwhelmed by the client's issues. They don't get the commitment from a client to change, which is very important in REBT also. They're not active directive. Like I mentioned earlier, REBT is an active directive therapy. When I say active directive, it means that the therapist is not just a passive listener.
Mm-hmm.
as he is in some other therapies. He actually he very actively participates in the session. He's responsible for keeping the client on track. He questions the client. Uh, whenever he thinks that, and he confronts them whenever there are any discrepancies. And then finally, he does challenge and dispute the client's irrational beliefs. So he plays a very, very important role. So he's very active. A lot of therapists they're not very active directive initially when they start practicing REBT. Also, a lot of therapists believe that you need to know the past first in order to deal with the present.
Mm-hmm.
So what has happened in your past, which is creating the problem right now? REBT does not focus on that. REBT focuses on how emotional issues are perpetuated, not acquired.
Okay.
Lot of therapists, lot of new therapists, they, instead of challenging the IB, they challenge the inference. They challenge the client's inferences, which is an absolute no-no in REBT, because we don't challenge the client's inference. We don't challenge his story. We go with it. They don't ask effective questions. Very often, either they are too verbose, or they allow the client to be very verbose. They allow the clients to dwell too much on the situation, which we call the activating event. They allow the client to sort of derail. So, clients typically have this tendency to talk about something that has happened 5 hours before, to 5 days before, to 5 years before, to the time when he was 5 years old. All in the same breath, So it's all a big puddle, and it's all a big heap over there. So in REBT, we are not really concerned with what has happened when he was 5 years old or when he was 15 years old, or we are concerned with the incident that he's given you right now. Okay. So that is one of the things. Then they don't look for meta emotions. In REBT, we have something called meta emotions, which is a primary emotion and a secondary emotion. Very often, the secondary emotion is more important than the primary emotion, but therapists forget to ask for that. They don't ask the client for specifics in terms of either the emotion or the behavior or even the situation by itself. They don't differentiate between the unhealthy and the healthy negative emotions. They fail to identify the correct IB. Now that can completely, take you in a different direction, because if you don't identify the correct IB, then your entire therapy goes for a toss.
Okay.
So that again is important. They don't make a very strong BC connection.
Mm-hmm.
Very often they dispute in a very mechanical manner, and they also don't help the client to frame a full alternative rational way of thinking. So there are quite a few errors that they make, but this happens. It's practice till you're perfect kind of a thing. So
sure. So Gauri, I think Dave has asked that he uses REBT a lot, and is there any place where one should not use REBT?
I think I've already answered that.
Mm-hmm.
When the client is experiencing a psychotic or a manic episode,
right,
or there is fresh trauma, then you would not obviously use REBT. Otherwise, you can use REBT in practically everything.
Mm-hmm. Gauri, going back to Jyoti's question regarding the phobias, and she shared an example of, say, I hate cockroaches and hence have a phobia for cockroaches. So how do we dispute that and resolve the phobia?
Yeah, so I would obviously have to do a session with her. I can't do that right away. But like I said, Jyoti, you work. There is an irrational belief behind that scare of cockroaches, and that is the irrational belief that I would work with.
Okay. Okay, Gauri, earlier we were talking about sharing a case study, a successful case study where you would have used an REBT with your client.
Mhm.
Could you just share one of them with us?
Sure. So I had this client, and she was a graphic designer, very artistic, very creative, wonderful person, and she also used to sing, right? So she had a very good voice, and she had some training in classical singing, and she used to get invited for these, small functions, uh, small community functions and stuff. And every time she went on the stage, she stopped accepting them because she used to get panic attacks before going on stage, so performing live. So she just stopped getting any more of those opportunities because she just used to not accept them. So that is what she actually came to me with. That was her presenting issue. And of course, in the course of therapy, there were other things also that came up. One was that when she was 7 years old, she lost her father. She was very close to her father. And her memory of her father was of being taken to the hospital on a stretcher. And he promised her that he'll come back, but he never did. And after that also, uh, she was a 7-year-old child and the only child, and nobody really paid much attention to her, and they all focused on the mother because the mother had lost the husband. And all she would see is, her mother had started wearing and appearing differently. She didn't look the same, and then there were people who were constantly consoling her and all of that. So she felt very neglected. And it came out that she had abandonment issues. Of course, I did not work initially with that part. I worked with her fear of going on stage and singing live, giving a live performance.
Mm-hmm.
So her IB over there, her irrational belief, there were quite a few of them, which I worked on. And one was, of course, of awfulizing that, what if people boo me? What if people don't like me? What if people throw, whatever, I'm not successful, and they just walk off or they fall asleep or whatever. And of course, there also, because of her abandonment issues, she also had this very, very deep need for approval. So she was this Florence Nightingale of sorts, who always ran to help people, even if people didn't need help.
Mm-hmm.
So she thought it was her, her absolute, what would you call it? Her duty, so to speak, to go and help every single person, whether that person needed her help or not. And obviously, it came out of her very, very low self-esteem. She had she had a very strong self-depreciation belief that she wasn't good enough. And when we were working on that, she came up, she sort of broke down and she cried, and she shared something with me which she said that she had never shared before. That soon after her father passed away, she wasn't actually sexually abused, but she could have been. So there was this person who came, and who's, she wasn't liking that distance, and she wasn't liking that space with him. But her grandmother walked in, and it didn't happen. But she carried that with her, and this whole thing came up in just this one belief of hers of not being good enough. So the whole abandonment issue came out of there. Not being good enough, that imagine I could have been raped.
Yes.
But I wasn't. I mean, she wasn't. But the fear, and she hadn't even shared that with her husband, despite the fact that she had a wonderful husband. So all of these things came out of this one thing of hers, of not wanting to go on stage, being afraid of going on stage to give a live performance. Why? Because I would then perhaps, it would ruin my career, and people would boo me, and people would not like me, and they would think that I don't sing well, and then people won't like me, and I need people to like me. I need validation, I need approval, etc., etc., to feel good about myself. So that one IB sorted out quite a few of these issues. And well, ultimately, she's even winning awards. So she's performing. Another thing I forgot to tell you is that soon after her father died, she developed a fever, very, very high fever, and she had to be hospitalized. This was about 6 months after her father passed away. And she came out of the hospital with a conversion disorder. So her hand used to tremble.
Okay.
So she was a graphic designer. It never trembled when she painted. It never trembled when she was, drawing, or she was involved in any kind of artistic work. But if you gave her a cup to hold, or if you gave her, a bag to hold, her hand would tremble.
Okay.
And she had gone to neurologists and everything, and they said that, there's nothing, there is some nerve disorder, and you can't do anything about this. But we were able to change that as well.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, as we are heading to the end of the session, so before we end, Gauri, I'm going to check if there are any other questions.
Sure.
And otherwise, I'm going to ask you to share how REBT has helped you or benefited you in your life.
Okay. Do you
I'm
want to
sure
first?
because we start with something from somewhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you want to first go with the questions
So
before
I'm not seeing any questions right now, but I'm hoping that
Okay.
I will be there later on. So you can go ahead sharing your experience.
Okay. So, see, my IB, very, very strong IB is frustration and tolerance. Okay. So I'm not very patient as a person. I'm very patient with my clients. I'm very patient with my students, but I'm not patient when it comes to day-to-day hassles. Okay. So when things go wrong, because I'm usually operating as a one-woman army, and when things go wrong, and which need my attention, and then I have my sessions lined up, or have my workshop lined up, and there's no water coming out of some tap, or some bulb is not working, or things like regular day-to-day things, I really lose it, because I just don't know how to I just never knew how to kind of I used to get so overwhelmed and get so worked up. And when REBT came into my life, I now just work on my FI. And just to give you a very recent example, Misbah, just yesterday, so I just finished an online workshop yesterday, and till now it was going very smooth on a particular platform. There were no problems. Yesterday, for some reason, I just could not log in.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like literally losing it, because of the last session, and I wanted to close, and I wanted to, sort of wrap up the whole session. And I just wasn't able to log in. And I was getting really flustered. And then I said, hello, let me just cool down, and let me just work on my FI. And because of that, I could then think of other modalities and other platforms. And finally, I was able to complete the session. So, this is my biggest peeve, and REBT helps me with that every time.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that personal experience. Actually, it really counts, and maybe at times we are able to resonate also with certain similar incidents that we go through in our lives.
Absolutely.
And that gives us a solace that हाँ नहीं मैं अकेली नहीं हूँ.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I mean, I keep telling my clients, I keep telling my students also, that we are all walking around with all of these IBs in us. And it is a very natural thing. We are naturally rational. We are naturally irrational. It's just that when we are irrational, we create all these negative disturbances and we are not mindful of that at that point in time. If only we are aware and if only we can identify where it is coming from, in a split of a second, you can change it and change the emotion and feel a lot better.
Lovely. So there's one more question. Bhavna is asking that any limitation from the client's end which will not allow the therapy to work?
If the client has no commitment to change, which is why seeking that commitment, seeing his motivational level to change is very important. It's a very important part of REBT, which we do right in the beginning of the session. Because very often clients come to you not out of their own volition, but because they have been coerced into coming. So the family has sent them, the parents has sent them, the spouse has sent them. And this guy is sitting there thinking that there's nothing wrong with me, everything is wrong with the world, so I don't need to change. So he's sitting there already with a mental block. And if his motivation to change is very low, there's very little you can do about that. Although you can work on that, because there's always an IB behind that as well. So then you work on that. Why is his motivation to change so low?
Okay. Maybe a last question, Gauri, that would you say overall RECBT process would be a structured process or a unstructured process? What is
Misbah, it is a structured process. However, it's not very rigid, and you can play around a lot in that structure. The process does have a few steps, but again, you don't really need to follow it. It's not sacrosanct. You don't have it's not rigid at all. Okay. So as long as you do a couple of things right, the rest you can do at any time. So you can play around in that structure. But yes, it does give you a structure. It does have a structure.
Lovely. So yes, I think we are through with today's session, and we are almost at the end. I think we are at the end of it. So thank you so much, Gauri, for such a wonderful, informative session on REBT. I'm sure a lot of us have cleared our questions, queries, and thank you everyone who's been watching us. And yes, I would also like to thank the entire iCharts team today, because we are almost at the 9th episode today. And
wow.
It's been a wonderful journey, and we're still looking forward to more sessions. And yes, tomorrow again at the same time, 4 o'clock on a Facebook. And thank you so much, everybody.
I'd like to take this opportunity once again to thank you and thank iCharts for inviting me, and thank you so much to everybody who is here and has taken their time to come and watch this session. So thank you so much for that.
Sorry, one more thing. I think somebody's asked for your contact details.
Yeah.
And if you could just share it with them, or maybe on the iCharts page, you can comment it where we are live right now.
So that is the iCharts Facebook page?
Facebook page, yes.
So I need to go on the iCharts Facebook page and okay.
Yeah,
okay, I'll do that.
The concerned person can get in touch with the
Sure.
Okay.
That he can also look me up. He can look up Self-Align.
Right.
SELF-ALIGN, Self-Align. It's an Albert Ellis Institute affiliated center. So if you Google me or if you Google Self-Align, you can also
I'm sure
be directed to my Facebook page.
Would be listening and would be able to get in touch with you.
Sure. Irrespective, I will share my contact details.
Absolutely. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody else. And time to see off. Bye-bye. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you too.